This is Abhishek Sengupta and welcome back. You are listening to Abhishek Sengupta audioblogs. We are here with another episode of Knowledge Talks. Now, in this episode, we have with us someone special once again. That's TedMclyman. If you all remember, we had a wonderful session with Ted a couple of years back. Now, we are here once again with him to know something about money because he is an expert in this. Now, Ted is based out in Nashville in United States. He's the co-founder and vice president of DreamSmart Behavioral Solutions. TedMclyman is a thought leader in behavioral financial wellness and the creator of Money Behavior System. By the way, he has got a trademark in this, so do not use this without his permission. He's the author of Discover Your Money Temperament and Money Makes Me Crazy. He is a seasoned coach, speaker, and the trainer. Ted brings a unique perspective on financial decision making. He challenges the traditional rational approach to money, arguing that we are emotional beings who think, not thinking beings with emotion. With decades of experience in financial advisory and leadership, he has helped countless individuals and professionals understand their money temperament, manage their financial behavior, and ultimately take control of their money. Get ready for an insightful conversation that will change how you think about money and financial success. As he is with us, we have selected a wonderful topic, money temperament. First and foremost, Ted, welcome to our show, and thank you so much for your time once again.
It is a pleasure to be back and great to reconnect with your listeners and get reconnected on the other side of the world, where I know you have the same money problems as we do.
We all do. Every part of the world, people residing in every part of the world has the same money problem. We can't manage our money properly, and the outlook about money is something which we will be discussing here. So, Ted, we are going straight to the point number one. Now, point number one is the concept of money temperament. Now, this is your patent subject. Now, my first question is, what is this money temperament, and how does understanding it help individual make better financial decisions? Over to you.
Oh, perfect question. A little background. I am classically trained in money and economics and finance, and I grew up in the world where everybody is rational. And if I can just give you one more spreadsheet and another piece of data, you will make a perfect decision about money and everything is perfect. I believed this for about 20 years. And as a practicing financial advisor, building a couple of financial firms, I soon realized that the rational person concept is a myth. And doing some exploring after working with hundreds of people in coaching, I realized finally that my job was to help people manage their behavior, not their money. Now, there was a time a number of years ago as a financial advisor, you actually sat down in the back room and did the hard work and pushed the pencils and the calculator and all that and did that. Well, technology has changed all that. Now you've got AI and robobots and all that. So managing money actually is very easy. What is hard is the behavioral piece. So money temperament is a subset of what I call your natural behavior. All your listeners, you, me, and everybody in the world who is still alive and breathing has a unique way of going through life. It's the way they naturally believe, what they believe about things, their culture, they interact with others. That's their natural behavior. A subset of that is your money temperament. And what makes us so radical compared to the conventional wisdom, I believe that the way you look at money, believe about money, think about money is a subset of who you are, your natural behavior. Now think about it for a second. Almost in everything else in our lives, we accept the fact that you are who you are, but when it comes to money, we want to go to an abrupt halt and say, wait a minute. All of a sudden, we're going to be rational. And you're going to all of a sudden learn how to do spreadsheets and be very comfortable about it. And you're going to do budgets and you're going to learn how to do all this stuff. And for most people, and I've found that this is true in most cultures, there's only a small number of people that actually interact with money the way we think they do, the way the traditional approach is rationally. No, we are emotional beings who think. We are not thinking beings with emotion. And we've got to get our arms around that.
Wow, that's very well explained, Ted. Ted, I have just taken down 3 points while you were saying. First and foremost is managing money. Is the managing behavior. That's what is important, not exactly managing money. So I think what I feel is it's a behavior towards money is that something which we need to manage rather than which in turn will manage money. So I think this is a very deep subject which you have just mentioned, that managing behavior, not managing money. That is the first priority. Second, you have rightly mentioned that with the onset of many new technological advancement like artificial intelligence, managing money has become easy, but at the same time it has become at times very complicated. So many AI tools are there, nowadays, with number of amount of money you save every month, you can plan your retirement, or you can do a reverse calculation in order to have a better retirement plan, how much you need to save or how much you need to invest. So these all tools have come up, AI generated tools have come up. So many a times it has made people a bit confusing. That's point number one. It has made people a bit sophisticated, and honestly, our lifestyle is also not so easy to manage because of this sophisticated things. And third point which you have mentioned, the way you look at money tells who you are. I think this is a very, very deep subject. This is a very valid point, and this is a very deep subject. Where you look at the money, how do you look at the money, what is the perspective of yourself towards money? So these are the very simple things it may say, but it requires a lot of research, a lot of knowledge, and many a times it requires a lot of training as well. So some of the very good points you have mentioned.
Well, let's talk about technology for a second. When I first started working with money, and I like to say I'm a product of the latter part of the last century, okay? Which, it was a different game. When I grew up, you went to a bank and talked to a banker. If you needed insurance, you talked to an insurance professional. If you wanted to get into the market or securities, you talked to a stockbroker. There were all these little silos, and it was pretty simple. There were not a lot of products, not a lot of service. And believe it or not, and some of your listeners may not even know what I'm talking about here, when you would sign something, it was a 3-piece carbon paper document. Computers were great big buildings that went someplace else, and people in white coats worked them. But for just real people, it was fairly simple. But technology has moved at warp speed. I have more power on my watch than I had in the computer I used in college. So what does this simply mean? It means there's a dichotomy here. It's a double-edged sword. One hand, technology makes money easy, accessible, much broader options. On the other hand, it makes it much more complicated. It means you can screw money up quicker. It's harder to fix. It's international. It's 24/7. And there are smart people all over the world that are sitting in little cubbies inventing new things that they think we need to have that are going to cost money, or even more exciting, new money. But we could get into crypto, but what I'm saying here is crypto really didn't exist 3 or 4 years ago. That's a technology. It's exciting and it's incredibly scary. So what all I'm trying to say here is it is so important to know who you are and what you're doing. If you're risk adverse and you're on your phone tapping away on the local exchange, just buying stuff because the person next to you says it's a great idea, you may have a great deal of anxiety in 20 minutes when you get an instant report back that the stock you just bought dropped 50%. On the other hand, if you are a person that loves the risk, what you have to realize is that your mind is on a drug called dopamine. Dopamine is the feel-good drug that makes you go. And what you are going to have to get your head around is you are enjoying the process of trading more than the outcome. And that can be incredibly dangerous behavior because you're doing things that don't make sense financially or economically. But man, you get that jolt every day in the morning, and it's like your cup of coffee. Let's go trade a little bit, make some money, lose more money. I don't care, but I'm in the game. Those are two absolute extremes, but that's what we're dealing with now. We really didn't deal with this a few years ago. I guarantee you, for all the listeners, your parents didn't deal with it, and your grandparents definitely did not deal with it. But if we have children right now, and maybe even grandchildren, they're doing things with their phones and computers with money. They probably don't know what they're doing. They're having a lot of fun, but it's a new game. That's really what I'm saying. So it's critical to know how you're naturally wired, your money temperament, and not try to fight it, but embrace it.
Wow, that's very well explained how the technology has contributed. It has made some exciting things as well as scary things. Now, I think this is taking us to the next point, emotions and spending decisions. Now, you argue that 95 to 99% of the spending is emotional.
Yeah, and again, here's our brains are infinitely complex. We really don't understand how they work. And they're amazing organs. It's not just the brain, it's really the entire body that is involved in the spending and money decision. What we have to get our heads around is our brain biology is eons old. I mean, eons. We're talking hundreds of thousands of years, where the kernel of what our brain biology looks like today began way back then. But it was designed to do two things, and it did it very, very well. It was designed to keep us alive and pass on our genes. It was designed to protect us, that when we're crossing, our ancestors were crossing the savannah to find something to eat, that they were not lunch for some other creature that was looking for them. What that means is our brains evolved to work very quick, instantaneously. And that ability is still there. So the modern brain, that legacy biology, is still here in a society that is moving very much differently than it did just a couple hundred years ago. And it means that it can get us into trouble. It means that in milliseconds, when a picture comes up on the wall, my subconscious brain has already made a decision. When you're looking at your phone, and this is where money becomes important, the smartphone is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. I know more about your culture now because of the window through my phone than I ever even knew about as little as 2 and 3 years ago. There are more people around the world that know about Nashville and country music, and it still boggles my mind that it's popular in some other places. But Bollywood is really important here, and it's musing together. So we have this international culture that's coming together, and our brains process all this stuff. So what I'm saying, in a spending situation, in most cases, your non-conscious emotional brain, is what I call it, is making decisions in milliseconds. And it's influenced by the hormones and the neurotransmitters in the body, dopamine, serotonin, to make you feel good. The rational brain is a subset. The rational brain, or the modern brain, allows us to do the analytical things. Or to put it very simple, our quick brain says, I hate doing taxes. My rational brain says, I have to do them. And there tends to be a conflict there. So remember, we are hardwired to stay alive. We're hardwired to have a good time. Planning is not something we do real well. That primitive brain is the default. It's where we spend 90% of our time. Therefore, when you walk into a store, you're being bombarded with information, billions of bits of information. And immediately your brain is processing this information and going, is this a threat, or is this something I like, something I want to get into? And this is why when you go to a store and you go to your car, your vehicle, whatever, and you look at the bag and you go, my gosh, I have a lot more stuff that I thought I ever bought. I didn't realize I needed this stuff. Your rational brain says, let's take it back. Your emotional brain says, no, I'm not going to do that. And then justifies the decision. So 99 to 99% of our spending behavior is automatic, subconscious, and emotional.
Wow, that's wonderfully explained how this emotional factor is playing. One point which you have mentioned, that most of the time it's non-conscious emotional brain which takes front lead, definitely, and somehow there looks like a fight between rational brain and emotional brain. Now this is no, no, in response to this, Ted, would you be able to help us to understand how people can recognize these emotional instincts and can take better financial decisions?
Yeah, and it's really common sense. It really is. Let me give you a metaphor. I'm assuming everybody on the call has driven an automobile at one time in their life. And I want to use this as a comparison to working with money. If you're going to drive an automobile, you generally have to get a license. And in fairness to everybody around you, you should know what you're doing. Okay? Safety. Well, there are a couple of ways I could teach you how to drive. I could give you an engineering manual and explain to you about all the workings of an automobile. I could give you videos and manuals of watching people drive. I could test you on that. And you get 100% on all the licensing, you know the rules of the road, but you've never been in an automobile. Then I put you in the automobile, give you the keys, and say, go drive. What do you think that outcome would be?
No, what I feel is until you are having a practical experience right on the point under a guidance, even if you sit in the simulator for hours, you will not. Probably simulator is there to just a feel of it, but real feel you have to get once you are there in on roads. Exactly
Absolutely.
what happens in the pilot. Pilot are not given the flight or aircrafts immediately. First, they need to sit for hours in simulator. Once they get once they, I must say, the reflex action develops, then they get the real aircraft and say, okay, now you fly off and land it
Right.
against.
Yeah. So if I'm riding with somebody, I want to ride with somebody that has gone from the technical side, had little coaching, understands their natural capabilities and limitations or their behavior. So you have a natural driving behavior or driving temperament. Okay, that has to be factored into driving that automobile. So I want to work with somebody that knows a little bit about how that car works, but I want them to learn how to drive from a behavioral perspective. I want my pilot to understand behaviorally. I want to know what his temperament is. I want to know if they're very calm and collective in a bad situation or they panic and run up back to the airplane. Okay? So we've got to do the same thing with money. All I'm saying here is you have a natural temperament. For the longest time as a financial advisor, we tried to change that. So if you came into my office and I start talking to you and you're a natural spender, my gut reaction was, I've got to stop that behavior. It didn't work. The client got alienated and very unhappy. I was very frustrated. The client would probably leave me. They might follow what I'm saying for about a week and a half, but stop doing it. I learned after working with hundreds of people that what my job was to do is say, okay, you're a spender. Great. You need a strategy that embraces the fact that you get emotional satisfaction out of spending, but I'm going to give you guardrails. Real client. I had a client come in one time and we're going through this thing and I did the profile on her. She was a senior executive. And I said, you appear to be a spender. And she took offense to that. And I said, well, I've got an IRA. Now the person was making about $250,000 US a year and saving 10,000. What I had to do with her was pay herself first, set up mechanisms that allows that person to do what's important for retirement, bills, investments, and then anything left over went to this person directly. That's the difference. You build the strategy around the temperament. You don't try to move the temperament to a fixed strategy. Very, very different. On the other hand, I had clients that were cheap. Okay, I'll just call it what it is. I had a person come in, a PhD in statistics, he could account for every penny he'd made for 20 years. And he got in a very emotional argument with me that he was not emotional. Now, there's nothing wrong with either one of the two, but my job is to help them understand, discover, and embrace that natural money behavior. Then design a strategy that accommodates that behavior, and then a program or a plan to execute it. What I call it is one size fits you, not one size fits all.
Wow, I think this is more of a practical, thing. You can have amazing theories, you can have, but real thing, what you have mentioned in both the examples, you have to really assess what exactly is going on ground, because I think more often every case is different, every person's spending habits are different, the earnings are different, goals are different. I think, the case to case basis things goes on. I think two of the examples which you have given, those are really, really amazing. Now, this is taking us to our next point. Now, the next point is why the rational financial planning fails. Now, traditional financial advice assumes people make rational money decisions. Now, my question is that why is it flawed assumption, and how do the emotions play a dominant role in financial choices? A part of which you have already explained, but how is this related, and why this rational financial planning fails? Over to you.
Well, I'm writing a new book right now that I'm getting into this a little bit more detail, and it's going to be a very simple book, a very pithy book, about 100 pages that just get to the meat of it. I got very frustrated dealing with the traditional financial industry. Now, I came through the academic side. I taught economics at a major institution, was a financial advisor for years, and what I discovered was most financial institutions are in the business of selling stuff. Rational is easy, it's duplicatable, it's less expensive. So the one size fits all cookie cutter approach tends to be the way most institutions go, most banks, and teaching falls back to classic economic theory, which is the rational man concept or the rational person concept, which incidentally Adam Smith didn't even believe. So what we have is a situation where I became very frustrated as a professional, where products were being designed, developed using new technology, which made them more complex, more sophisticated, more apt to break, more apt not to be understood, and they were offering them at warp speed to their clients. And what it came down to is a sales call. You need the fill in the blank. Why? Well, because it's new, because it's shiny. Unfortunately, it doesn't make much difference if you're buying a new suit as opposed to putting $100,000 into an investment product you don't understand. You don't understand how it works. You don't know what the dangers are. And then you find out eventually down the road that this was not suited to you based on your money temperament. Does that help with the question?
I think that's wonderfully explained. Yes, you have absolutely right that, rational type of, or whatever, the traditional type, whatever you say it as, is more as a cookie cutter approach. It's easy, it's quick fix, whatever you take it as. But over a long term, many a times these things do not suit what the future, because whatever we are doing today, it's for the future, because we are not saving or investing for today. What we are doing is we are investing for future. This cookie cutter approach may be good for quick fix, or I must say this may be good for at times to go ahead with the present time. But if you are actually going for a long term planning, you require something which can really match with the demands of future. You cannot have a previous generation solution for a next generation's problem. I think I'm deadly against it, because in India, I must say, we have got different traditional instruments for investing. Many of them are deemed to be safe, like fixed deposit, or in India we do have a postal savings scheme also, because 50-60 years when India became independent, banking network was not very good, but post office network was wonderful in India. So you call it as a zip code, we call it as PIN numbers, postal
Okay.
index numbers. Now every place has got a specific postal index number which used to be served by a specific post office. So at that point of time, the postal network was better than the banking network. So at that point of time, immediately, in order to make their money safe, or make the people invest when the banking system was not very good, the postal saving scheme and postal investment schemes and different types of postal schemes were there. The people used to go to the post offices and put,
There you
and they
go.
used to
Yeah.
get their proper savings account and all the in the post offices. But now, of
Yeah.
course, the things have changed, and of course, but that approach which we had 50 years back, we cannot have the same approach now, because over there the requirement was different. Over there, their motive of investment, or motive, or way, the purpose for saving the money was different to what we are having, our generation is having at this point of time.
Yeah.
So traditional and rational method, it's difficult to say whether it is right or wrong. Maybe right, maybe wrong. Many a times it's a matter of debate. But with the change of time, with the change, with the new generation, you need to have the newer approaches for money management and money investment, or money handling, whatever you take it as. We need to adopt that. Change is the law of nature, and we have to carry on with this change, because at our generation we cannot think of putting our money in the postal schemes or postal thing. I'm not saying those are bad, those are still existing, but of course, our older generation still have got
Oh,
a healthy
absolutely.
amount of money over there.
Yeah.
But yes, we are going on, and it's going on still there. But of course, we are shifting our perspective from a traditional rational system to a newer generation system.
Right. Right. And you're bringing up an incredibly good point that talks about the impact of culture. Again, the three things that conspire us against making good money decisions. Number one is our biology we talked about. Number two is culture and beliefs, which is huge. I get back to that, and then finance, technology, we already talked about. Culture now, India is a wonderful country to look at culture. It's an ancient culture, but it's incredibly complex, incredibly sophisticated, and very diverse. You can go from one end to the east to the west and see incredibly different things. And there's not here in the United States, we have this image of what Indian culture is. Okay, it's a little different than going down to the local Indian restaurant and have a plate of chili. I mean, curry. Okay, chili's the Mexican culture. Sorry about that. And the same thing here. I live in Nashville. I have people from Europe that come and visit us, and they assume we walk around in cowboy hats and boots all day long. No, we don't. So culture is amazing. Back a couple of generations with our parents, our grandparents for sure, culture was very, very driving, but it was a microculture. It might be a village, it might be a small town. You didn't have the technology, the outside influences. Then the years go by, the culture became much more regional. And then it became national. Well, now it's international. I can't think of a place I can go in the world I can't find somebody wearing a pair of Levi's jeans, American jeans, denim, or a ball cap, a baseball cap. I don't care what you call it, but you're going, what is different is if you're Indian, you wear that stuff a little differently than I do. If I'm American, because if I'm in London, I can sometimes walk around and say, oh, those are the Americans. No, those are the Brits. Oh, those are, but they're wearing the same stuff. So those cultural impacts are incredibly important. Plus, you've got a collection of people that are doing some amazing things in some of your tech centers that are changing the world in a flick of a button. So your culture is now becoming much more of our culture. Our culture has always been part of your culture over the last 50 years, but both of our cultures have an underline of the old British Empire. Okay? And that legacy piece of culture is still driving a lot of the way we look at money, the way we look at norms, the way we look at interactions and behavior. So it's becoming very, very fascinating. But if you're going to be successful with money, you need to have an understanding of, number one, you're human. You're always going to do human things with money. Don't fight it. Embrace it. Number two, your belief set, which is with money, is usually well established by mid-adolescence, and your culture are game changers. And our phones, I can watch cricket in India, flip over and watch dog sled races in Canada, a rugby match in New Zealand, and never get out of my chair, and it's live. Okay? So technology becomes a game changer. You're going to be very frustrated if you try to fight it. But what you have to do is discover where you fit best and figure out how to optimize or get the most out of the environment you're in that works for you. That's what I mean by one size fits you. In a money perspective, you need to discover who you are with money. And I don't care what it is, it doesn't matter. Number two, you need to do a deep dive to understand what your values are and your goals are, and values and goals are different. Values with money is what's important about money to you. What is important about money to you? Is it to fill in the blank? Okay. Well, if you want to know what's important to you, look at your calendar, look at your bank statement. That's what's important. And I'm not complaining. If you want to go out and go to Europe or go to London twice a year and buy the latest fashions, go for it. However, that will have an impact on something else that you're probably not going to be able to do. That's called opportunity cost. It amazes me when I go to any large metropolitan city around the world, they have the same shopping experience. It's usually high end, ridiculous prices, things that I would never wear, and people are buying it. So you need to understand that, then realize that technology is doing things emotionally and non-consciously to your very primitive brain that is making it go, I want this, I want this, I want this, I have this, whoa. And the best example I can think of, everybody's familiar with Disney World, correct? The ears and all that. Do you ever realize that the things you buy at Disney World, clothing-wise, look wonderful in Disney World? But when you get home, not so much. That's a classic example of being caught up in the emotion of the moment to spend a ridiculous amount of money on a t-shirt that was probably produced by one of your neighbors at, pennies on the dollar that you spent a small fortune on, and you get off the plane and you look around and go, this isn't working. That's our brains on money. And because our society is moving at warp speed, because you have access to anything around the world almost immediately, instantaneously, that your children can go to school in Europe and come back and start a business in India. The young people that I've worked with that are building businesses in Mumbai and some places like that have a very, very different world view than their grandparents. That can be a bit of a clash, but that's what it is. And as soon as we finish this discussion and you send out this broadcast, something else is going to pop up that we're not even aware of. And we could have a discussion in a week about some new gotta have in the field of money, finance, commerce, recreation. I don't care. And there's somebody out there who wants to sell it to you. And your brain says you gotta have it.
No, that's absolutely. The 3 points which I have actually noted is that you have rightly mentioned that culture is a very powerful stuff. It's a very, very powerful force. And, and the technology has brought different cultures together. And of course, now East and West is interacting. Indian and American culture is going on. You watch cricket, we watch Euro and Copa. And that's what, that's how, Copa is very popular here. Copa is very popular here. Equally, Eurocup is very popular here. And nowadays, even baseball in India is getting popular. So that's again an exchange.
That's right.
Yes, absolutely. Baseball.
And American football wants to take over the world.
Now, even I have seen rugby. Rugby was never a game in India, which I haven't seen in my childhood actually. But now I have even seen the youngsters are playing rugby. They are buying their rugby gears and everything. So that's the exchange of culture we all are having. Second point, which we have mentioned, what is the importance of money for one? I think this is a very vital. It's a very deep question. One need to really brainstorm. It's not that easy to come a real answer, because for every person this answer will extend. For me, it could be different. For the others, it could be different. What is the importance of money? For me, it could be something. For others, it could be something. Based on which I feel the temperaments will differ and temperaments can be worked out. Third is that, of course, the Disney World example which you have given, I think, that's again a play of emotion, which is that emotional love is really playing in this case. I have, to some extent, a synonym of this is my me purchasing different souvenirs at airport. Probably when I'm into some international airport, it's my habit to pick up some souvenir over there in Singapore or probably in Dubai or something like that. So again, it's something, and the emotional love which tickles at that point of time. Okay, let me get something of this, it looks good, it's something like that. So that is something airport stuff. And believe you me, a brand in India, I must name it. It's belonged to one of my friend by the name of Rare Planet, RARE, Rare Planet. They really got some very good funding from the Shark Tank India. Again, it's equivalent to the Shark Tank America. We do have a Shark Tank in India also, Rare Planet. And they have opened their souvenir shop. They used to deal with different articrafts and handicrafts of India. They have their shops in every airport in India, almost every airport in India. And there also the buyers are having their emotional nerve which gets tickled over there, and they start buying over there from there. I have many a times I have seen the Rare Planet retail shop is staffed by non-Indians. They are foreigners visiting India, or probably they are taking something to their home or something like that. It is exactly what you have mentioned in the Disney World, exactly what is happening in Indian airports. In fact, it happened with me also. When I travel to Bangkok, when I travel to Singapore, Dubai, and all this, I have bought something or other as a souvenir to. Okay, this is I bought from Dubai or from Singapore or something, and this is a common phrase. And I'm a regular emotional love ticker. It happened with me.
Absolutely. It's because we're so human. We're always doing human things. And when it comes to money, we should be surprised when people get money right, not when they get it wrong. The default is the emotional side. It's hard to drag people over to the rational side. You've really got to set the environment up. I'll use taxes as an example. I don't know anybody that likes to do taxes, but it's a fact of life. And you can be emotional yelling about it, but to get them done, you've got to force yourself into the rational period for a bit, do it as required and get them done. And then you can go emotional again and yell and scream. So what I think the key what is missing from traditional finance and economics is the front end of what I'm talking about. I am talking about what should happen before you talk to the financial advisor, before you go to the bank or the post office or whatever, or dig a hole in the backyard to bury your gold. I really don't care, but you need to do a couple of things. Number one, be very clear what your money values are. What is important about money to you? And be very clear, but don't judge. If I know people that their entire existence is playing golf. I don't play golf. I don't condemn them from doing it. I question why they spend the amount of money, because I spend an equal amount of money on other things that I do that they think is nuts. That's not the point. What are your values? For most people, it's family, legacy, doing something good. Honestly, it's not owning a new car, things like that. That's a goal. So what are your values? Try to determine your money temperament. The book, Discovering Money Temperament, I go into it a lot more depth. The new book will be a little quicker. But all I'm saying is I know I'm comfortable with risk. I like to do it myself. I tend to control my savings for the little things, but when I buy something, I tend to buy high value, good stuff. My wealth motivation is, yes, I'm motivated for legacy wealth, not so much having a lot of cool stuff. And I know that emotionally, I prepare for different situations so I'm not captured by the environment to do crazy things. So when I travel, I just know, like one thing, I don't mind walking expensive shopping areas, but what I started doing was maybe I'd leave my wallet in the car, or I wouldn't, I'd set a limit. In supermarkets in the United States, we all go to the right. Okay, that's a cultural thing. You go in the right door, everybody goes to the right around the supermarket. Well, the high value things are right up front. So if you want to save some money, make a list and go to the left. It's not this is very common sense, but once you put this together and you're comfortable with who you are, then realize culture is conspiring against you all the time to get you to break out of your comfort zone to do something maybe you may not want to do. We are herding animals. You want to be very uncomfortable. You be the only person in a Mickey Mouse ears in the airport in Mumbai, and everybody's going, but you don't feel that way in Orlando. Okay? So realize that those drivers are going to be attacking your primitive emotional brain, and it's hard to overcome that. And you do that by taking positive steps to put the guardrails in that say, when I go to a store, I'm making a list. I'm going to put cash in my pocket because when I pay cash, I don't spend as much as I pay credit. Now I've got digital payment capabilities on my wrist. I don't even have a clue how that works, but I got one. The other thing you've got to remember, if you have a partner, married, and children, they probably have different money temperaments. And you have to figure out how to work through this. My wife is wired 180 out from me. She's incredibly, she goes nuts with some of the things I do. And I just go, well, it doesn't bother me. She goes, how can it not bother you? You just spent $100 on something, blah, 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 blah. And I said, where? Okay. But the big picture, you have to understand that. And you have to figure out how to resolve that natural conflict because you're doing something together as a couple that is working. That's your microculture. Embrace it. But what's important about money, not to you, but what's important about money to your partner, and you need to resolve that. If you're value driven and your program with money is based on your belief set and your values, and it embraces your money temperament, then the strategic plan and execution is pretty darn easy. The trick is finding somebody that will not give you that one size fits all approach, the cookie cutter approach. And that's where it gets complicated. And you've got to be smart enough and mature enough and emotionally mature enough to sit down and say, this is where I am. And if you're working with a professional, make sure the professional understands where you're coming from and be very comfortable getting up and walking out. The good news is once you put this all together, because of the new technology, it's pretty easy to get everything that they're offering on your phone, but check twice before you sign.
No, absolutely, I agree with you. Now, Ted, this is taking us to the next point. This is the point of pitfalls, I must say, the money and behavioral traps. Now, what are the common behavioral traps that people fall into when making financial decisions, and what are the practical steps one can take to recognize and change this self-sabotaging financial behavior? Over to you.
Great question. And I think go back to what I was just talking about is know yourself and don't deny it. Embrace it. One size fits you. Then you have to be in a position, and you might need little nudges or little planning that if you have a tendency to spend emotionally, and the valet at the biggest shopping area in town not only knows your name, but knows the license plate number of your car and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that's your behavior. That's who you are. So when you are in any type of financial transaction, that has long-term ramifications and significant impact if you screw it up, that's when you have to take positive steps to force yourself into your thinking brain and take quote unquote rational decisions based on who you are, as opposed to the way we generally do it is somebody calls you up, let's go in the car, we're going to the beach, and the beach culture's there, the beach environment's there, it's very easy to spend a lot of money on dinner and this, that, and the other thing. I'm not saying don't worry about that, but the things that are consequential, kids, college, houses, cars, anything that usually has a couple of commas in it, is something you've got to sit down and take a positive step. Sometimes it's just as simple as stop, breathe. 1, 2, 3, 4. A pen is probably one of the most important tools you can have as a financial planner, along with a small piece of paper where you make a quick list and you stay to the list. It's amazing how much money you can spend if you don't do that. So to make this as simple as possible is, again, it's common sense. You probably do this in everything else in your life. If you're into athletics, you probably have a coach. And you work with a professional. If you had a professional probably design your house. I mean, you go there. But in money, we tend not to do that. We just kind of put our hands up and say we go with the flow. You are accountable and you are responsible for everything you do and fail to do with money. The do-over is painful, and there aren't many of them. So you have to determine for yourself what I mean by a consequential expenditure. For some people, if you've got unlimited resources and a great trust fund, their concept of consequential is different than mine. But I have to be realistic. But then I have to come back and say, okay, what's important about this to me? What are my values? Always go back to the values. Am I true to my values with regard to money? What are my values going to cost to make them happen and support them? And what is going to happen if I don't make it happen emotionally? Then you take a look at this, figure out your strategy, then execute the plan. Then in the planning process, you need to surround yourself with nudges and people and mechanisms or guardrails that are going to keep you on track. Some people, it's a 3x5 card. It may be a picture, maybe having somebody who's going to hold you accountable, like an accountability coach. Knowing how you like to process information. What's your learning style? Are you a visual, auditory, tactile? So you make sure you're getting information and processing it in a way that works for you. I call this money knowledge. And then try to make sure that you don't get swept away with the current fad of the moment that somebody's doing an infomercial on right now. And just because everybody else in the neighborhood has one, it doesn't mean you need one. Go back to your values. Be realistic. And that's different than budget setting. That's different than the traditional approach. Traditional approach is all goal driven. A goal is a car. How much does it cost? You tell me when you want that car, you tell me how much you got, I can do the interest rate and tell you how you're going to get it. That's different than what is important about a car to you. Is it status? That's different than transportation.
Wow, that's some amazing insights. I must say, many of the things which you have mentioned probably applicable to me as well. First and foremost, you have mentioned that a conscious effort. Conscious effort is very much important. You have to really plan yourself, and you have to really be conscious what exactly how you are spending your money and what exactly you need. And I personally feel that you need to draw a line between your need and greed, because needs are there. Of course, everyone has got need, but greed is very unlimited. You cannot have any limit of your greed. And the last point which you have said, I mean, it's not the last point. The point which you have said is that if everybody has one, that does not mean you need one. I think nothing could be better than this. In there is an Indian proverb is that it's in our local language. It says that if you burn the oil lit lamp while you have light, probably when you have dark, you won't be left with any oil. So this is it's because in Indian in ancient time we used to have oil lit lamps. Electric lamps were not there. So it said that if you are burning that oil lit lamp uselessly, so you will not have those lamps or resources when you actually need that. So again, that you have to draw what is required, what is not required. Exactly what you resonated is that if everyone has one, that doesn't mean you need one. So this is a very powerful statement which you have made. And the third point, of course, you have shown the pen and the paper. Believe me, this is something when it's simple, but we all lack that. We all start making their mental planning or something like that. But if you just pick up our pen and paper and start writing, I personally feel that it's not only related to money or something, but your most of the problems will have solution. You can identify most of the problem, and once you identify the problems, you will get the solutions, of course. So this is one. So if you pick up the pen and paper, nothing more. It's of course we say that pen is mightier than sword, and it is really, it is. And when it comes to the transaction and financial field, nothing can they. In our forefathers and our grandparents once used to say, if you want to spend, go ahead, it's your money, you spend, but write it down where are you spending, because if you are writing those down, your subconscious, you are registering that in your subconscious. Even if you're spending, you are registering that in your subconscious brain. And subconscious brain is a very powerful brain. Dr. Joseph Murphy is he wrote one of the finest book, The Power of Subconscious Brain. And yes, and believe me, it's a very powerful book, and it's a very insightful book which he has mentioned, which he has written. And this tickles the subconscious part of the brain. If you are writing it down, it prickles. Your brain keeps a record that you are spending in these. And once you write it down, you can even classify what was needed, what wasn't needed. And it also is the first stage of planning. And of course, we know the planning is the blueprint of future action. So we need to have this first step in place in order to go forward. So some of the wonderful discussions we had made, I think it's a 1 hour is a very, very less time to have such kind of discussion. Probably we need to plan some other time as well in order to go ahead with subscribe. We will have an ample point. Believe me, when we were discussing, I have been taking down, I think 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. I have taken down the notes, and probably it will go on for next 4 hours probably, but I have to respect your time, no doubt. So we are coming to the end of this episode almost, and believe me, it was a wonderful discussion, lot of insights for me as well. Ted, any closing remarks would you like to put?
Just simply know yourself, discover your money temperament, embrace it, and unleash it.
I think very insightful message which you have given. 3 points, very insightful. And believe me, I'll now be ordering your book, because I was just checking Amazon India has got your book this time. So I'll be getting this book very soon.
Good. Perfect,
so this is in my reading list for this year. So this year I'll be having it sooner or later.
Well, let's get some momentum going. I need to visit.
Oh, please come down. You're most welcome. Okay. Thank you so much, Ted, for being a part of this episode today. It was a very, very insightful, discussion about money temperament, and many to discuss, of course. Probably we will schedule some other time, some other day to carry on with this discussion. If any of you would like to connect with Ted, I will give his details and social media handles in the description of this episode. You can connect with him and do buy his book. I know his book has got, and the link of Amazon link of this group book, I'll be putting it in the description of this episode. Please buy it. It will give you some amazing insight about money, and it will be really have some amazing plans for you. It will help you in many ways. So thank you so much, Ted, once again, and being a part of the show. It was an amazing discussion, and that's all for the time being.
Yeah, let's not wait 3 years to do this again. Or 2. I don't know what it was.
Probably in next 1 year
we will plan once again. It's been too long.
Yeah, we will do it once again next year probably, or let's see how it goes. Like, thank you so much, Ted, once again, and for being a part of the show. To my podcast listeners, I request for a review. I want an honest review how my podcast is helping you and enhancing your life. I'll be back with many such episodes. Till then, stay tuned, stay connected. Have a great day. Thank you, Ted, once again for being a part of the show.